Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Good Stories Podcast. I'm Jody here with Steven, and something new this week that we've been working on. I say we, but I'm telling Steven about this as we're talking here. We had an idea come in from a friend and listener. Thank you to Wes. We are soon to be an affiliate bookseller, so it means we'll get a link both with Amazon and bookshop.org. Have you seen bookshop.org?
I have not, but now I need to.
Yes, you do. They are a network, I think, of independent booksellers. And so then we get a link as an affiliate, and people who buy books that we mention with our link, they get a discount, we get a little bit, and it supports independent booksellers, which I think is great.
I love everything about that.
And Amazon, because it's the behemoth that we all buy things from.
You can find everything on Amazon, true.
And we've been buying a lot of books, so sometimes I get the cheapest one possible. I'm so sorry. If people help us pay for them, I won't do that. Because I do love independent booksellers around the globe.
Yes.
Fantastic. So that's new, and I'm excited about that. So really, thank you to Wes. It hadn't even occurred to me beforehand. And it was really easy to get signed up.
Well, that's awesome. It was a great idea.
Yeah, I know listeners who've bought books already just from listening to us, and that's really cool. And so for them to get a discount doing so, I think is a win-win. So that's coming. And now let's do our top 5 new download locations this week. So hello out there to everybody in Norcross, Georgia, DeSoto, Texas, Newport News, Virginia, Portage, Wisconsin, and Bend, Oregon. I think the only one I've been to is Bend.
Yeah, the only one of those I've been to is Bend.
Yeah, but hello. Thank you for listening. So we are pretty much in the middle of our season 2, brother. Season 2 of episodes. And it's been a while since we talked about Shakespeare, the Bard. So back in season 1, we went through The Tempest. And as we all know from the wonderful movie Stranger Than Fiction, all stories categorized into either a tragedy or a comedy. In a tragedy, you die. A comedy, you get hitched. That's from the movie. Great movie. So The Tempest, per those categories, clearly a comedy. There's a love story. Nobody dies. But today's story, definitely a tragedy. This one's called Macbeth. And it's a deep, dark one, truly. So, brother, fair is foul and foul is fair. Time for a story.
Macbeth and Banquo are the chief captains of the King of Scotland. After distinguishing themselves in battle, the two are lost on a heath and encounter 3 terrifying witches. The witches foretell glory for Macbeth and glory for the sons of Banquo. Their veracity seems to be confirmed shortly thereafter when the king awards Macbeth the title of the Thane of Cawdor in gratitude for his exploits. This small success spurs Macbeth on to take greater risks. In partnership with his wife, he must decide just how far he is willing to go in order to become the king.
Very good. So a spoiler alert. I mean, again, this one's very old, and if you haven't heard of it, read it, you probably know the ending. And as we said, it's a tragedy. Ruined the end right there.
Yeah, shorthand for they all die.
They pretty much all die.
At least all the bad guys die.
So it was only an episode or 2 ago that you said you pretty much only like happy endings. Mm-hmm. Give you the sappiest, happiest ending. So preface this one a little bit. Why read it if everybody dies?
I think the key is the bad guys die. So justice occurs. Actually, again, spoiling the whole thing, justice gets restored to the land. In many ways, it's actually a happy ending for Scotland and for the children of Banquo, for some of the good characters in this. There are many good characters that have to go through darkness, but I don't really view this as a sad ending because bad things happening to a bad person who deserves it, that just falls in line with justice for me. And then the other thing about this, though, is that it gives such a wonderful picture of how he could have avoided it. It is self-chosen. His destruction is something that he has embraced the whole way. And so when he has the option to step outside of this, he doesn't. And so these are ways where it's not really, in my mind, a sad ending. If it was all the good people that did everything right die, that I'm just not going to deal with. But this one, I think, does what a tragedy should do. It gives us a picture of things that we can avoid in our own lives, although obviously to a far lesser degree than Macbeth goes.
I agree entirely. I think what I personally love about Shakespeare is the rich words. And we did talk a lot more about Shakespeare in The Tempest. So if you want to hear more about him, the man, go listen to The Tempest, because we did a little background on what people think they know about Shakespeare. So I'm kind of not going to do that this time. But the richness of the words in this play is magnificent.
Yeah. Over and over, I would turn the page and be like, oh, it's this passage.
Yeah.
Oh, that line. Oh, I remember that was in here. I mean, just rich is a great description.
And I didn't read this one super young. I read Hamlet because Hamlet's a classic. I mean, everybody needs to read Hamlet. And in Hamlet, he just thinks and stews and thinks some more. Macbeth doesn't think at all. And his wife tells him to stop thinking.
That's right. That just gets him into trouble.
So in some ways, it's kind of a flip of Hamlet, to put it at a high level. In terms of the story, that's not true at all. But in terms of the just stewing and thinking that Hamlet does, that's not Macbeth.
Absolutely. That's a great description. I hadn't thought about it in that way. But in Hamlet, you have a character who cannot take action classically and is just thinking, and it's this prison of his own thought that really leads to all sorts of troubles. In this one, you have somebody who acts immediately without really thinking, and then you have the act leading into thinking, which then causes him trouble. It's really interesting.
Yeah. It's really a prison of their own choices in this. So we don't usually preface a story so much, but I think the words in Shakespeare can be difficult if you're not used to them. And even me reading this time with intention, I had to slow down and go look. And mine even has some notes to help me along the way. It is a different way of speaking than we have now. But man, if you think about what they mean, the layers of meaning and the richness of the words is marvelous. I was so impressed this time, and I've read it before.
And I'm going to follow your lead, and I'm not going to do a lot of kind of pre-stuff, a lot of stuff on Shakespeare or anything, but there is one thing that I did want to re-emphasize that we talked about before The Tempest, and that is, please remember the story is a play. The story was meant to be watched. It was meant to have visuals. It was meant to have actors. It was meant to have an experience where you went and participated in it and watched it. Now, many people do not go to Shakespeare plays anymore, and so this may be the only exposure you get, and the words are rich enough that this is a wonderful exposure in its own right. But I would plead with anybody who is interested in this, go find a play, preferably a live one. There are some movies of plays that you can watch on this too, but to go experience it in that way will make it come alive in a way that we're just not going to be able to do talking through just the words.
Have you seen this one on stage?
I have. Mm-hmm.
How many times? Like how many different versions?
2 or 3.
Okay. I need to. I thought that as I was reading this one. I've only seen pieces of it on stage, kind of demonstrations of it and kind of practicing, because this one has some amazing, what do they call them, soliloquies? Those are the solo ones, right?
Yes.
I want to watch the whole thing, definitely. So this one I learned actually on a trip to the UK last fall. There's a real castle in Inverness where this takes place for the bulk of it. The castle in Inverness, where the main drama happens. Let's go with that. And I believe it's based on a piece of real Scottish history, kind of twisted. Macbeth was a real king. I understand he was a pretty nice guy, all in all.
Yeah, there are some people that get really angry at Shakespeare for this because they feel like they're blasting a national hero in some ways, and there's massive debate on the character of the historical Macbeth.
Mine said he was king for 17 years.
Yeah, he ruled. I'm going slow here because there's passages later where we speak about the King of England at the time. And so I was going to go into the history a little bit more during one of these later periods.
I was expecting more.
It's to come.
Okay. There's just so much here in this one. Like the weird sisters, the witches, they resemble, the Norn. We just talked about the Eddas, the Norns, and these prophetic witches. They're really interesting, and they're kind of just plunked in here. But man, they play a role. And the variety of characters that are in it. So there's the High King of Scotland, but also his sons and then the Scottish nobility along the way. So for a pretty short play, there's a lot in it.
Yeah, it packs a punch. And as you were saying, we started with a comedy when we did The Tempest, and this is our move into the tragedy. And I think this is a great introduction to the tragedies because the words are so good. It really is a rolling storyline. There is stuff that keeps happening. It's really interesting, but it's not as overwhelmingly depressing as some of Shakespeare's tragedies get. I mean, please do not start with Titus Andronicus or some of these others. I mean, this is a good one to start on. And this one has a very, very soft spot in my heart for a couple of reasons. One is this is the absolute first Shakespeare play I ever read.
Really?
Yes, I still remember it. I was in 8th grade, and I had somehow got into an independent study Shakespeare program. I got a period out of school where I got to go to the library, and I was going to just get into Shakespeare. I don't know. I mean, must be Mom that let me do this. I mean, she was great at letting us do things to stretch ourselves. And so I remember sitting in the Woodland Middle School library with the copy of Shakespeare pulled off the thing, and I had heard of Macbeth, and this was it. This was my introduction to Shakespeare. So I love it for that reason. One of the other reasons I really like that is when I was in college, I got to do some theater, and I got to do a couple Shakespeare plays, not this one, but I got to hang around theater folk, which was a hoot. They were great, wonderful people. And some of them had stumbled across an old VHS acting class that was taught by the Royal Shakespeare Society. And it was old. I mean, Patrick Stewart was young. Ian McKellen was young. Ben Kingsley was young. Judi Dench was young. And just the list of names that I'm rattling off here speaks to the caliber of these wonderful performers. And they would do all these different scenes. And we spent like 2 days just watching through this on the VHS tapes. But the scene that really stuck with me was an incredibly young Ian McKellen doing the tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow line from this work. And so, yeah, Macbeth is just great.
My first experience from anything with Macbeth was a typing program in early middle school called Mavis Beacon. And it was the out brief candle. Same speech.
Same speech.
But I didn't know what it was from until the end. I was like, oh, that's Macbeth. And then I read it and was surprised because the tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, it is moving. But man, it is tucked inside of a battle scene. I mean, they are prepping for war and very unexpected, I thought, the kind of shift in flavors. So it was not my first Shakespeare. My first, A Midsummer's Night Dream. Since you've been around theater folk, which I have not, I saw a note that this play is famously cursed.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How does it play out?
Hey! It is understood that one does not say the name Macbeth in a theater. It is considered horribly bad luck. You do not say the name Macbeth in a theater, whether you're doing the play or not. Now, if you are doing the play, you're allowed to use it in the lines. So that's an exception. But if you're hanging out after practice or after a scene and you just say Macbeth, that is considered bad luck. And there's all sorts of stories throughout history of actors and actresses who have said it, and then, the theater burns down or somebody gets stabbed with a fake sword, but it turns out to be a real sword. I mean, all sorts of things like this. And it's really reached such a height that there are those who are like actively debunking it, because it's still so superstitious and people are still on it. I mean, actors will often talk about, they won't say Macbeth, they'll say Macbee or Lady Macbee.
Is that how they do it in rehearsal?
It's one of the ways.
Like,
yeah.
Lady Macbee over here?
Yep, totally. And there's actually some semi-formal rituals for what you're supposed to do if you do slip up and say it. A lot of the rituals involve having to leave the theater, go outside, spin around 3 times, like spit over your left shoulder, and then there's some variation. Sometimes you're supposed to say a line from a Shakespeare play, usually from this, The Tempest, or Midsummer Night's Dream, actually, would be the big 3. The other thing is there's often a requirement that you have to be invited back in, that you don't just go back in on your own.
Like a vampire.
Like a vampire. So I heard the logic behind that was that so people who just keep screwing this up don't keep coming back in. That the cast actually has the ability to shun them and make them stay out because they just keep saying the name Macbeth.
Was this how understudies were created?
It might be.
The main guy was stuck
He
outside.
keeps saying Macbeth. Yeah. So
That's hilarious.
the other thing is with theater folk, they'll often refer to this simply as that Scottish play. And so if anybody talks about that Scottish play, they're talking about Macbeth.
Do theater folk like to be referred to as theater folk?
It depends. There's a wide
Sounds funny.
diversity of theater folk. Some of them are really weird. Some of them are fairly normal, and they're all wonderful. I mean, they were great people.
Spectrums everywhere we go. Mine says, leave the theater, spin around, spit, and recite a line before returning. So that is the cited way to cure the saying of McBee inside of a theater. I mean, as Steven said, this is a play. So there's a lot of characters, and most of them aren't key to the plot. It starts with the three witches, the weird sisters. The Tragedy of Macbeth, Act 1.
When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain?
When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won.
That will be ere the set of sun. Where's the place?
Upon the heath,
There to meet with Macbeth. I come, Grimalkin.
Paddock calls.
Anon.
Fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air.
Well, that sounds creepy to start. And mine has some minimal stage directions, which talks about thunder and lightning as these witches are coming in and talking. I mean, this starts spooky. I mean, this is Halloween type thing. And it's part of what has made this play so fun through the ages. You will hear all sorts of critics complain about the fact that there are witches in this, that it adds this supernatural element that doesn't really seem to fit with the rest of it. I disagree. I love it. I think it's enjoyable, and I think people that go and experience this play really enjoy the witches and remember them.
And it sets the tone. It sets the tone of this story. And there are other transitions other than the witches. So this sets the stage as, spooky. Something's going on here, and it's dark, filthy air. But later there's transitions that demonstrate something about the flavor of what's going on. I love the witches for that reason. They put the flavor, they start big.
And with Shakespeare's plays, usually they all follow a fairly similar pattern. There's usually 5 acts, and each act has usually between 3 and 6 scenes. Macbeth really breaks some of those rules. I mean, the last act has, I think, 11 scenes, which you almost never see, but a lot of them are very quick, like this one. So what we just read was scene 1. There's going to be longer scenes, but as I said, this does really move. It does really hop from story to story, and so it starts with this wonderful scene setting with the witches, and then enters King Duncan of Scotland.
Duncan, his sons Malcolm and Donalbain, and then some Scottish nobles and their attendants, as well as a bleeding captain. There has been a battle.
And Shakespeare does a great job of transmitting information to the audience by transmitting it to the king and the other characters. Frequently, there'll be one character explaining what has just happened in this battle or this event or in another room, and that way we get to learn about it at the same time as the king does.
So the king asked this bleeding captain, how did the battle go? How didst thou leave it?
So this is the captain answering the king. Doubtful it stood, as 2 spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art. The merciless MacDonald, worthy to be a rebel, for to that the multiplying villains of nature do swarm upon him. From the western isles of cairns and galaglosses is supplied, and fortune on his damned quarry smiling, showed like a rebel's whore. But all's too weak for brave Macbeth. Well he deserves that name, disdaining fortune with his brandished steel, which smoked with bloody execution, like valor's minion, carved out his passage till he faced the slave, which ne'er shook hands nor bode farewell to him, till he unseamed him from the nave to the chops, and fixed his head upon our battlements.
So Macbeth did very well. To translate, I love this phrase, from the knave to the chops, he unseamed him. It means he stabbed him from the belly button up to the jaw.
Cut him in half, like pulling a seam out of a garment. It's an evocative phrase, I would say.
Yes, the king is so happy to hear the battle went well. Macbeth is now the man of glory. And this poor bleeding captain is like, hey, can I have a doctor? That's a lot of words for a man who's just bleeding after battle.
It was important to paint the picture, though. And yeah, so this has been a rebellion. You don't need to remember all these names because there's going to be a lot of Macs. I mean, Macbeth is the main guy, and here we have a MacDonald, and there's going to be more Macs. But MacDonald is a rebel that's overthrown and never really even gets to be seen. And so he is killed by Macbeth, and the king is aware of the greatness and the valor of Macbeth, his captain.
But it's not just Macbeth that is mentioned here. Also, his partner, his friend, Banquo. They were in the battle together, and they basically turned the tide.
The captain is describing how there was this sort of switch in the battle where there was more forces that came than they were expecting. And Duncan asks, dismayed not this our captains, Macbeth and Banquo? Yes, as sparrows eagles, or the hare the lion. What he is saying here is that them seeing a bunch of new enemies, it would be as if an eagle saw a bunch of sparrows or a lion saw a rabbit. So they're not dismayed, they're hungry. And they were excited about this. And even these forces that should have switched things against the king couldn't slow down the might of Banquo and Macbeth.
But the captain says, but I am faint, my gaseous cry for help. And the king tells him, this is so good, so well thy words become thee as thy wounds. They smack of honor both. Go get him surgeons. And he gets to go. At this time, some more of the Scottish nobility come up. So there's a man named Lennox. The king's son I mentioned is there. Malcolm, another named Ross. And they're describing more complexity. This is a political story. Things are happening in Scotland with this rebellion. But they had a traitor. He was the Thane of Cawdor. Thane is like the servant but leader. Yes?
Yeah, it's a noble ranking, like Duke or Earl. I don't know the exact ranking, what it correlates to, but it's a high position of nobility.
So the Thane was a traitor, but it says the victory fell on us. And the king says basically that we're going to kill the traitor and give his title to Macbeth. Macbeth's actions on the battlefield, he doesn't even know it yet, have earned him a new title.
And this whole conversation is happening without Macbeth present because Macbeth, after fighting this battle, ends up in a different place. And the scene switches to the witches. We are back to the witches. In that first intro, the witches said that they were going to be meeting Macbeth coming. And so here is where we have Macbeth basically lost in the fog, walking around with his friend and fellow commander Banquo, and he stumbles across these witches.
And they say, a drum, Macbeth doth come.
And the witches always speak in this sing-song prophetic tone and voice. And it's pretty great here when he shows up, where they all say, all hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glamis. That is his original title. That is who he is, the Thane of Glamis. And then the second witch responds, all hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor. Now, again, we know that because we just heard the King Duncan is planning to give him that title, but Macbeth doesn't know it. And then we move to the third one, and this one really gets his attention. All hail Macbeth, that shall be king hereafter.
Now, these are some spooky ladies, and Macbeth is shocked. But his friend says, good sir, Banquo says, good sir, why do you start and seem to fear things that do sound so fair? Like, these are fantastical, but amazing things coming in his future. He was just given a prophecy about himself and his own glory. Very good, seemingly.
Banquo turns to the witches and asks them questions himself, and the witches now respond to him. They hail him as well, and again, the word so good. First witch, lesser than Macbeth and greater. Second witch, not so happy, yet much happier. And the third, thou shalt get kings, and though thou be none, so all hail Macbeth and Banquo.
Macbeth says, stay, you imperfect speakers. Tell me more. He wants to have more information, which seems reasonable. They disappear. Witches vanish.
What is it with oracles?
Quote book.
The more you read, I mean, it's the turning point of so many old stories. The Oracle of Delphi is famous for this, right? King Croesus goes to them and says, shall I make war upon the Persians? And the Oracle responds, if you go to war, O king, you shall destroy a great empire. And Croesus takes this as good news, but turns out that when it's all done, he realizes the empire he's destroying is his own. I mean, there's always this turn, or there's always this concept of how can that possibly be true? And then the fun of the story tends to be unraveling that, how these things that seem contradictory actually speak to truth. They're not terribly useful, but they're very fun from a story standpoint. And we fall into that category here. Macbeth gets all this really good news, but then this bad news that he's somehow less happy than Banquo. And then Banquo gets all this kind of good news, but also bad news that he's not going to be a king, but he's going to be get kings. And again, very confusing and no more information because the witches just leave.
And Banquo is confused. He says, were such things here as we do speak about, or have we eaten on the insane root that takes the reason prisoner? Like, did that just happen? And Macbeth says, your children shall be kings. And Banquo says, you shall be king. They're kind of filtering this information because it was bizarre and out of nowhere.
Well, they don't have to sit there for very long before the king's lords show up. Ross is somebody who's going to show up multiple times throughout the play. And he shows up and he greets Macbeth and he tells them, we are sent to give thee from our royal master thanks. And he says, he bade me from him call thee Thane of Cawdor. Now, Banquo has a response to this. What? Can the devil speak true?
Macbeth is still confused. He says, the Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes? When he last saw the Thane of Cawdor, he was alive. But the king, they tell him that the king had him executed for treason. And now the title is Macbeth's, as promised by these bizarre witches.
Macbeth now has been given this first breadcrumb on this trail. The witches have made promises, and the first thing has fallen in line. So this makes him wonder about the rest of what they promised. And again, the big thing they promised him was kingship. There's a problem, though. There's already a king, and the king has sons. There are people in the way. But you can see the wheels start to turn in Macbeth's mind. And when you see this acted out, that's one of the fascinating parts or the fun parts about a good actor playing Macbeth is somehow they have to portray through the words written for them, but also with their expression, their face, their mannerisms, what they're thinking. And there's a lot of rich opportunity for that in this sequence.
I'm just going to read some because I love it. It says, this supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success, commencing in a truth? I am Thane of Cawdor. If good, why do I yield to that suggestion, whose horrid image doth unfix my hair, and make my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature? Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes so my single state of man, that function is smothered in surmise, and nothing is but what is not. Translate, brother.
My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical. We get the concept of murder introduced, the idea of assassination. He has been promised this first initial thing, and it happened. And so he is now starting to believe, to think the kingship could happen too. But in order to get that, what is he willing to do? And what is he going to need to do? And he's starting to think about those details.
He says next, if chance will have me king, why chance may crown me without my stir. He has this thought here that he doesn't need to do anything different. He doesn't have to take action. Maybe. But he doesn't No, and that's the question that's sticking in his mind. They kind of move on from there, but again, the language is so good. Come what come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day. Just these little asides. That's not even a main point of the conversation, but the idea that whatever's happening, time is going to continue moving on. So, next scene.
And with the next scene, we go back to the king. We go back to King Duncan, and he greets his captains. He does some logistics here. He names his son Malcolm his heir. We've already learned he has two sons, Malcolm and Donalbain, and the king, for some reason here, decides he's got to say, here's who's going to be in charge if anything happens to me, and it's going to be Malcolm. And he also plans to go stay with Macbeth. And again, Macbeth is always doing these little asides. And the king is also getting all sorts of information because he asks about the Duke of Cawdor and whether he's been, executed yet. And again, what a great line. Nothing in his life became him like the leaving it. He died as one that had been studied in his death to throw away the dearest thing he owed as were a careless trifle. This is a character we don't even meet. This is a traitor to the king who is executed. But what a beautiful line. Nothing in his life became him like the leaving of it. Shakespeare is just a master.
He died well. And the king here says he was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust and ended up having to execute him for treason. And I think that's kind of the flip of this role of the Thane of Cawdor. He just had that Thane, that noble, executed for treason. He gives it to Macbeth. There's definitely a pattern.
It does make you question King Duncan's judgment, doesn't it?
It does, and really the tragedy of who he chooses to trust. But Macbeth here is nothing but loyal. I mean, he expresses love to the king, service to the king, all thanks, and I mean, this seemingly earnest fealty. And I don't know. Do you think it's feigned or not? I'm not sure. I think it might be both.
I think it's both, especially here. I think initially he was a great captain and a servant of the king, but he's also ambitious. And so now that his ambition has been given a window to work through and to see, I do think we start to see his brain and his heart turning. And we get introduced to that through these asides Macbeth is throwing off. And earlier in this scene, the king has said that his son Malcolm will be the king after him, the Prince of Cumberland. This is something we just kind of have to get used to when we're reading Shakespeare, English literature with the nobility, is they often have multiple names. And you refer to the same person by a name or by their title or by where they rule. I mean, it's kind of like now when we talk about the Prince of Wales, it's the Crown Prince of England. Same idea here. So Prince of Cumberland, and here we have Macbeth's aside. The Prince of Cumberland, that is a step on which I must fall down or else o'erleap, for in my way it lies. Stars, hide your fires. Let not light see my black and deep desires. The eye wink at the hand, yet let that be which the eye fears when it is done to see. Earlier, he was talking about, this idea of murder is still fantastical. Now he's thinking, oh, there's a prince, and that's going to be a problem. And now he's calling on the very stars. He is going down this road quickly.
There are biblical references in this. They speak about praying later and saying the Amen. They reference Golgotha and mention this battlefield. But where he says, let not light see my black and deep desires, the idea that darkness hated the light. And here, it's hard to tell in the phrasing if let not see his dark desires and like let not them actually happen because he doesn't even like them himself, or just let's keep it secret.
Well, the end of it, to my read, would indicate keeping it secret. The eye wink at the hand, meaning don't watch it, but the hand needs to do it.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, the eye wink at the hand. It's so well written and creepy.
But there they go to Inverness, the castle. Macbeth's castle. And he writes a letter. The beginning of the next scene starts with Lady Macbeth, his wife, reading a letter from him about all this news, about all the happenings.
And can we just pause for a moment to say what an incredible character Lady Macbeth is?
Oh, chilling. Chilling over and over. You'll see what I mean.
Every one of my theater folk friends loved this role. Now, when Shakespeare wrote this, all the roles were played by men. but this has become just the role that women Shakespearean actors just love, and you'll see why.
Also, there, as you said before, so many lines that you've probably heard. Turns out they're from Macbeth. It starts where she's reading this letter. He's describing what happens, and now she's thinking to herself. And she says, she's talking about her husband in her mind. Yet do I fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness. That did not go the way I expected. Again, I'd read it before, but if you read it new, this man is telling his wife about this wonderful thing. He's been given a title and the king is on his way and all these things. But her husband is too full of the milk of human kindness for whatever her wishes are.
Yeah, she's worried he's going to be soft. She is all in from the beginning here. He's got the opportunity to be king. He can rule, and she is a very, very practical woman because she sees immediately what has to happen for that to occur. The king must die. King Duncan must be killed, and she worries that her husband is just too soft.
Hie thee hither, that I may pour my spirits in thine ear and chastise with the valor of my tongue all that impedes thee from the golden round, which fate and metaphysical aid doth seem to have thee crowned withal. Chilling every time. I mean, I can't read it like theater folk, for sure. But man, she is terrifying and amazing.
Terrifying and amazing. And this is just her reading the letter and thinking about how she's going to respond to this. But then Macbeth comes in and the two get to talk about this. But it's a fairly quick conversation, and Macbeth wraps it up with, "We will speak further." But Lady Macbeth clearly wants to speak further.
This speech that it's almost a prayer, and I'm going to read it because I find it awful and amazing. Is that okay?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Here we go. He brings great news. The raven himself is hoarse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse. That no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Come to my woman's breasts and take my milk for gall. You murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold. She's praying for lack of kindness, for lack of emotion, remorse, anything that would prevent her from perpetrating murder. An evil prayer to be emotionless. Again, chilling.
And Lord Macbeth has gone back and forth a little bit in his thoughts. He's thought one way and then the other, thought about it and then pulled back. Lady Macbeth, all go from right here. I mean, replacing her milk for gall. I mean, there's no turning back from this. She is ready to proceed.
It ends with Lady Macbeth telling her husband, "Leave all the rest to me." She's got the plan. She's going to make this happen.
Well, you wouldn't sense any of that by the way she interacts with King Duncan in the next scene, because immediately from this prayer to the dark powers, she then welcomes him into her home.
Doublespeak bothers me so much. I mean, even at a lesser level than this, but as you said, it's this extreme dark request. And then like, "Oh, king, welcome. We are so happy to have you here." It is just a complete gear shift. And just the guile and manipulation behind it is just disgusting.
Which moves us into the next scene where we are back to Macbeth, Lord Macbeth himself. And again, there are so many of these great monologues, and I feel like I've got to read this one too. Is it okay if I read this one?
I marked it. Yes, you should.
Okay. I'm going to read this. If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence, and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here. But here, upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump the life to come. But in these cases we'll still have judgments here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which, being taught, return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poison chalice to our own lips. He's here in double trust. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed, then as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear to his great office, and that his virtues will plead like angels, trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off, and pity, like a naked newborn babe striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim, horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, that tears shall drown the wind. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other. Enter Lady Macbeth. So what we have in that passage is, again, him arguing with himself back and forth. He's arguing in part that his soul will be damned, right? The world to come, he's in trouble for this. He just knows that if he kills him. But he also argues that in this world, he's going to be in trouble. You don't just kill a king and get away with it. You really shouldn't be able to kill just anybody and get away with it. And so there is justice that will come after him here. And he emphasizes his duties to this man he's thinking of killing, both as a kinsman, as a liegeman of him, and then as a host. All these things just make the evil more and more. But he also speaks of his ambition. But in his heart, he doesn't think the ambition is enough to overcome all those other things. He's too scared to do it.
Yeah, I really like the line, Duncan is here in double trust. The level of loyalty and trust and love between these two should be sufficient to make sure Duncan is safe. He just awarded this guy a title. And Macbeth had fought and won this battle for the king. But he tells his wife, we will proceed no further in this business. He, Duncan, hath honored me of late, and I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which would be worn now in their newest gloss, nor not cast aside so soon. He likes this. This is a good feeling. He's being rewarded for work well done to his king.
But Lady Macbeth is not going to let him give this up. She drives him to this. Now, again, it doesn't take much driving. It's not like Macbeth is a good guy, but she does not let him rest on this. And she continues to work on him that, no, this is what you have to do. And again, going back to those lines that we see all over the place, but screw your courage to the sticking place and will not fail. Of course, I know that line from Beauty and the Beast.
That's what I was going to say.
Hey, yes.
It's in a song. We're trusting on Gaston to lead the way. Yeah.
So any advice that Gaston is giving probably isn't good. And it's not here from Lady Macbeth either.
She calls him a coward. And she says, would you live a coward in thine own esteem, in his own thinking? But think what that means. The opposite of a coward would be courageous. He's using his courage to murder his king. That's a twisted use of an insult and a compliment. Like if you call someone a coward or courageous, but he says basically he's not a coward. I dare do all that may become a man. Who dares do more is none. That's another line I think that people have heard.
Yes. I also enjoy his back and forth with Lady Macbeth because he is starting to be a little intimidated by her. Bring forth men children only, for thy undaunted mettle should compose nothing but males.
They'd be terrifying too.
Yeah. I think he's implying she's a little mannish here.
But Macbeth is worried that justice will come for him, some kind of retaliation for killing the king. And Lady Macbeth says, no, that won't happen. As we shall make our griefs and clamor roar upon his death. They're gonna play the game too. They're gonna murder this man in cold blood in their home. and then pretend like they didn't do it and weep and grieve or pretend to do so.
And this back and forth between this married couple, it's just so well done and so interesting. And again, when you have a good actor and a good actress doing it, it is spooky and wonderful to watch. But this scene ends. I am settled, and bend up each corporal agent to this terrible feat. Away, and mock the time with fairest show. False face must hide what the false heart doth know.
Spooky.
Again, it's not just evil, it's betrayal and it's hypocrisy. It's putting on this false face, this fairness, and yeah.
And here we are, Act 2.
Bringing back our good friend Banquo, the other one of the captains on the heath that the witches had said something to. And Banquo, this is still going through his mind. And he wants to talk with Macbeth about it. Things are happening. Things have happened here. And Macbeth basically says later. We'll talk about it later.
Banquo's a little freaked out. And mine says Banquo is uneasy because he too is tempted by the witch's prophecies, although only in his dreams. It says, I dreamt last night of the 3 weird sisters. To you they have showed some truth. And Macbeth's like, what? I don't even think about them. Hasn't even crossed my mind. Such a liar. But they agree to talk later. Banquo leaves, and now it's Macbeth at night. I believe the king is asleep in his bed. And this is a famous line. I think I can only hear it one way.
I think I know the way. It's Robin Williams, right?
Absolutely.
Speaking it with the voice of John Wayne.
Yeah.
Dead Poet Society. It's a good movie.
Is this a dagger which I see before me? Macbeth is visualizing a dagger in front of him that it's leading him to accomplish this terrible thing to kill his king. The handle toward my hand, come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain? I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which now I draw. And then he draws his real knife, his real dagger.
Star Trek devotees will recognize Dagger of the Mind as one of the original series episodes. So another connection there. Yeah, this, I think, is where he decides to do it. This is that final battle between his desires and actuality, because now it changes from, as we say, the dagger of the mind, something he's imagining, to the real dagger in his hand. And this is really where I think that decision gets made. So the end of this, and the whole monologue is definitely worth reading, but the end of it. I go, and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell.
He exits. We don't see it happen. Next scene, enter Lady Macbeth. And she's fired up. She had a role here as well. The king has attendants. Her job was to get them drunk out of their minds. And they were going to make it look like these attendants had killed their king. They were going to use their swords, their daggers, and blame the 2 attendants sitting there. But I like her line here because there's a scream. And it says, it was the owl that shrieked, the fatal bell man. How often is the owl this harbinger of something terrible in the night?
Across cultures, in many cultures, the hooting of an owl, the shriek of an owl, is a symbol of death, or at least of something terrible about to happen.
Eventually, though, Macbeth comes out it says, from within. I love play prompts, from within. And he says, who's there? What ho? And Lady Macbeth says, alack, I am afraid they have awaked, and 'tis not done. The attempt and not the deed confounds us. Hark, I laid their daggers ready. He could not miss them. Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done it. She's talking about the king. She puts these knives out, and she looks at this sleeping man, but he looks like her father, so she leaves it for her husband to do.
And it's fascinating to me here in this scene as well, this kind of disdain she has for her husband. This is a common motif with wives and husbands of like, oh, he's just not going to do it, right? He can never really do it sort of thing. And she's scared that he has wimped out, that he's backed out and not done it. But then he shows up and immediately says, I have done the deed. Didst thou not hear a noise?
I heard the owl scream and the crickets cry. Did you not speak?
When?
Now.
As I descended?
Aye.
Hark, who lies in the second chamber? So we have
overthinking.
So the king is dead. The pages are drunk and basically unconscious. But the job is not done because you have to frame the pages. And so Macbeth was supposed to take their daggers and smear blood and gore on them and leave it in their hands. So when the king is found, it's obvious they did it. But he didn't do that. And what's more, he's even afraid to do it. He says, I'll go no more. I'm afraid to think what I have done. Look on it again, I dare not. He will not go back to the scene of the crime.
Mine says that he enters with the bloody daggers, that he brought them out with him because he's just almost in this stupor over what he has done here. And it's interesting. They hear people cry out in their sleep. And in one, they say, murder. And another says, God bless us. Amen. And Macbeth is freaking out. He says, why couldn't I pronounce amen? I had most need of blessing, and amen stuck in my throat. Oh my gosh, that got me big time.
Yeah, he's given it up. He has turned from ever being able to join in the amen again after this.
He says, methought I heard a voice cry, sleep no more. Macbeth does murder sleep. The innocent sleep, sleep that knits up the raveled sleeve of care. The death of each day's life, sore labor's bath, balm of hurt minds, great nature's second course, chief nourisher in life's feast. Still it cried, sleep no more to all the house. Glamis hath murdered sleep, and therefore Cawdor shall sleep no more. Macbeth shall sleep no more. This guy is in his head big time. He just did this traumatic, evil thing, and he is sure he will never close his eyes in peace again. And the idea of sleep, I think, very much translate to peace in this. The idea that he will never be at peace. He makes references to Duncan is now at peace. He can sleep. He's at peace. Macbeth can sleep no more.
Yeah. I think we've all met people or have come across writers that act as if like conscience isn't a thing, that you just do it and then you move on. What's the problem here? That certainly seemed to be Lady Macbeth's arguments to begin with. Just do it. What's the issue? But here we see this sparking of the conscience, not to a degree that he was willing to change his actions. He did it, but to a degree that now he pays a price for it. And I think this is some of the wisdom of Shakespeare, and what we get to witness as we're watching this play is that there's a reason why we don't do evil. It's not just because we're afraid of getting caught. It's because it takes a price in the individual. And we're going to see Macbeth doesn't get caught here. He gets away with it. This works. But he is paying the price from this moment on.
Well, Lady Macbeth still doesn't have a conscience. Not firing. She's like, go wash your hands. I'll do it. She takes the bloody daggers back. She smears the pages who are passed out and frames them entirely. But she too comes out with blood on her hands, and they must wash. And she says, it's easy. Nothing a little water won't fix.
At the end of the scene, we start to get a knocking sound. Somebody is knocking at the door. It's not clear who it is, but Macbeth is getting kind of twitchy, and he's responding to this and hearing it. And this scene ends, to know my deed, 'twere best not know myself. And then the knock again. Wake, Duncan, with thy knocking. I would thou couldst.
A moment of regret. There's a porter here with some great back and forth. All of this has such wonderful words. So some of it we're shortening. Some of it I can't pass up. But the porter and his play on words with the knocking. And I mean, he's totally drunk and just messing around.
If you understand fully all the porter's jokes, shame on you. No, this is definitely Shakespeare at his body humor stage, and it's really funny. And somebody who's good at this can really lean into this, and it's such a wonderful balance too as you think of the play, because we have just gone we started with witches and it kept getting darker. And this ends, we're up to now the murder of the good king, the conscience starting to sear Macbeth, and this moment of regret. So there's this tonal despair working its way down. Enter a funny, drunken, dirty porter. And it's helpful for the flow.
Yes, there is some verbal sparring with these Scottish nobles that arrive because they were commanded to wake up the king in the morning. He was only there for one night. And this is another Macduff. Macduff shows up and
Lennox.
But Macbeth comes out like nothing's wrong. And they ask, is the king awake? Not yet. Playing it cool. And Macduff had been, the mix are confusing. Even when reading it, I had to check and be like, oh, Macduff.
The most important Max, so Macbeth and actually Macduff.
Yeah.
So Macduff is one you are going to want to remember.
Macduff, I will emphasize the second part. He goes in to wake the king. And Macbeth makes small talk outside. But Macduff comes out screaming and says, I can't even say what's wrong. Go look yourself. Approach the chamber and destroy your sight with a new Gorgon. Do not bid me speak. See and then speak yourselves. So Macbeth runs in with the others to look and see what's wrong and finds the king Duncan dead.
Lady Macbeth is told and she faints. She's playing her part. They say, look to the lady because she's passing out. So the part is being played very well by both Macbeth and by Lady Macbeth.
Macbeth says, had I but died an hour before this chance, I had lived a blessed time. For from this instant, there's nothing serious in mortality. All is but toys. Renown and grace is dead. The wine of life is drawn, and the mere lees is left this vault to brag of. The dregs of life are all that's left. And it's interesting because he's doing it as this way of convincing them of how sad he is that Duncan is dead. But he's also in personal anguish and hell over this act that he just committed. So in a way, it's earnest, just not how they think.
And he's not done with violent acts because there's one other way that he can kind of seal his security on this. Macbeth comes out of the room and all this has happened off stage. And he says, oh, yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them. And Macduff, wherefore did you so? He's talking about the pages that he's framed for the murder. Macbeth responds, who can be wise, amazed, temperate, and furious, loyal and neutral in a moment? No man. The expedition of my violent love outran the pauser, reason. Here lay Duncan, his silver skin laced with his golden blood, and his gashed stabs looked like a breach in nature for ruined, wasteful entrance. There the murderers, steeped in the colors of their trade, their daggers, unmannerly breached with gore. Who could refrain that had a heart to love, and in that heart courage to make loves known? So he portrays these second and third murders he's just committed as an act of love, as he was overcome by these emotions. But now the pages can't defend themselves. I mean, not that they really could probably in this society, a page against a thane, but still, now they're not even going to get the option.
So the king is now dead, but his sons are here, both of them. But there's this rush of activity because Lady Macbeth is fainting away. She is overcome with emotion. And so they take her away to care for her. And the two sons of the king have a quick talk over what they should do. They feel that something's wrong. There's more here. There's more plot here. And they do not feel safe. So they agree that one of them, the oldest, Malcolm, the heir, will go to England, and the other one, Donalbain, will go run to Ireland.
Yeah, they're fleeing, but they're fleeing for their own safety. It says, where we are, there's daggers and men's smiles. They're perceptive because there absolutely are.
Here's another one of those transition times where suddenly there's an old man.
And I love that his name is just Old Man.
But he's reminiscing. And again, it's about the setting, the flavor of what's happening. So here, this is a tragedy. This old man is describing all his years. He's never seen something and time so sad as this. What is going on? And now that the sons have fled, maybe they were behind it. Now there's this smear upon them, like they had a role, perhaps.
And now Macbeth is next in line for the throne. He has gotten rid of the king. He's gotten rid of the king's sons. And now he is enthroned. And again, this is all done off stage. We don't actually see the coronation of Macbeth. It's just this conversation between the old man, another lord named Ross, and then Macduff gets involved in the conversation as well.
I do love the blessing at the end, the benison. God's benison go with you. This is the old man speaking. God's benison go with you and with those that would make good of bad and friends of foes.
Begin Act 3. And Act 3, we go back to somebody who hasn't played much of a role yet, but was very important in those first scenes, and this is Banquo. Banquo is still around, and he's thinking that all this has come true for Macbeth. He was Thane of Cawdor. He is now king, and you hear his thoughts. Thou hast it now, King, Cawdor, Glamis, all as the weird women promised. And I fear thou played most foully for it. Yet it was said it should not stand in thy posterity, but that myself should be the root and father of many kings. If there come truth from them, as upon thee, Macbeth, their speeches shine, why by the verities on thee made good may they not be my oracles as well, and set me up in hope? But hush, no more.
And Macbeth comes in as king. He has been crowned. He is now king. And he, in my mind, enters big. Like, here's our chief guest. Like, he's feeling good and welcomes Banquo. Very big and bravado kind of flavor for me.
If there's one thing we've learned through 2 full acts is that Macbeth is not to be trusted. That even his acts of kindness have a dagger behind them. And so he is planning this massive royal supper, this banquet that he wants all his lords there, and he wants Banquo there and insists that he come. But as part of this, he also gets Banquo's plans. And Banquo tells him, no, I'm going to go out riding. I've got a thing I'm going to go do. I'll try and make it for the supper, but I've got to do this. And so now Macbeth knows where Banquo is going to be.
When he makes him promise he's coming back, fail not our feast. He knows where he's going to be and what time. He's planning the logistics this time because the weird women told him that his sons wouldn't be king. By inference, because they said that Banquo's sons would be. And what kind of king wants to pass on his recently acquired throne to someone else's sons? And so he makes sure that Banquo will be where he expects him to be and that his son, Fleance, funny name.
It's a funny name.
Fleance will go with him. They know where he knows where they're going to be. And then, as everyone else leaves, it says, enter servant and 2 murderers.
Yeah, not subtle.
No, very clear.
That's on their business card. Murderer.
I don't know if they had business cards in Scotland at the time.
The Right Honorable Guild of Murderers.
Maybe they did, you know. Funny though, note that there are 2 murderers here. And Macbeth goes big into convincing them that Banquo was and is their enemy.
Yeah, he says that he is the one that basically ruined their lives and took their lives away from them. And are they going to stand for that? Again, what kind of man would stand for that? And the murderers have reached a point where they're willing to, yes, they're happy to ambush, kill, and take care of Banquo. But Macbeth is very clear to them, not just Banquo. You have to kill his son too. And he commissions them and sets them out on this task.
Macbeth ends it with, it is concluded. Banquo, thy soul's flight, if it find heaven, must find it out tonight. And then there's a party.
Sure.
The scene changes in this are big.
And I love, again, the interactions between Lady Macbeth and now the king, because they've got people around now. There's a party coming in. They've got to entertain, or they're about to entertain. But Lady Macbeth keeps kind of prodding Macbeth that, you're not looking very cheerful. You need to play the part. You need to be the king. You need to be big and present. But that conscience is really eating at him. And maybe not even so much the conscience here too. He's also has this whole new plot going on. And so he's got fear of the success of the plot to kill Banquo and his son. But yeah, he just keeps going down darker and darker roads.
Yeah, there's some really good lines in this part. It says, we must lave our honors in these flattering streams and make our faces vizards to our hearts, disguising what they are. And Lady Macbeth constantly is telling him, you have to stop thinking about that. You must leave this alone. You're focusing on things that bring you down when you need to be up. You need to have the presentation. And he says, oh, full of scorpions is my mind, dear wife. Not because he killed a man. Thou knowest that Banquo and his Fleance, his son, that they live. And so here he lets her know that there's another plot, but he wants her to be innocent of this one.
Yeah, she asks, what's to be done? And he says, be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck. That's pretty funny.
Dearest Chuck.
Dearest Chuck. That's almost as good as Doodlem.
Doodlem.
From The Giant's Heart. Till thou applaud the deed. And so, yeah, he does not want her a part of this. This time he's got it. This time he's planned it. And the next scene, there's going to be a bunch of these really fast snippet scenes. So if you see this performed, you will find a lot of directors will actually combine a bunch of these because it's hard to do scene shifts. But this next scene goes to the murderers. And remember, Macbeth had 2 murderers ready to go. He got another one. There's a third one that just shows up.
Enter 3 murderers. I noticed that. And the first 2 are like, why are you here?
Yeah, but who did bid thee join with us? I mean, they're okay having another murderer, I guess. They just want to know who hired him.
Macbeth, so it's okay. But what is he just making sure that they're outnumbered?
I think that's part of it. I think this speaks to his fears.
Yeah.
I think that 2, not enough. And it speaks to some of the indecisiveness of him too. That he had a plan. Nope, no, I'm going to do more. I'm going to give a 3rd murderer involved.
And this is an ambush. So they know Banquo and his son are coming back towards this feast. And they ambush them as the rain comes down. And it is brutal, actually, to even read. Banquo says to his son, walking in peace, it will be rain tonight. Just commenting on the weather. And the murderer says, let it come down. And the murderers attack. And Banquo, screams at his son to run, fly, fly. And his son escapes.
Yeah. Banquo does not. This is where Banquo falls. And immediately, we're back to the party.
And everyone is welcomed warmly. Lady Macbeth is always affirming how her husband should act and the duties of a king to make his guests welcome. And Macbeth is big here, and he sits in the middle of the table among the people there.
And this is so well done when you watch it, because one of the things that's very hard to do when just reading or just talking about this is the interplay, the exchanges, and how many things something's being done on one side of the stage while something's being done on the other side of the stage. Because in this one, we have this dinner party, this wonderful banquet, but then we have showing up at the door the first murderer that Macbeth can see.
There's blood upon thy face. 'Tis Banquo's then. And the murderer confirms that Banquo is dead. It's really horrible. He says he's lying in a ditch with 20 gashes in his head, and the least of them would have killed him. They hacked him to pieces, needlessly.
Macbeth is fairly excited about this. His response, thou art the best o' the cutthroats. Yet he's good that did the like for Fleance. If thou didst it, thou art the non-peril. Most royal sir, Fleance is escape. Then comes my fit again. I had else been perfect. The plan didn't work. Even with a 3rd murderer, they couldn't get his son.
All right, it's official, Stevie. We have to go watch Macbeth.
I'm in. I love it.
I have to find one because It's not a common one that I know of around here anyway.
No, it gets done occasionally, but it is a hard one to do because you do have so many scene changes, so many costumes, so many people. I mean, it's definitely a challenge.
And you can't say his name.
And you can't say his name.
Nobody wants to get left outside.
Not without spitting and spitting. Then you can get back in. So Macbeth is a little bit happy because Banquo's dead. He's a little bit sad because Fleance has gotten away and he's worried about that. But he's got a party that he has to supervise and go over. And he turns around and he walks back up to the table when all of a sudden something else happens. And my my stage directions on this just says, enter the ghost of Banquo and sits in Macbeth's place.
And Macbeth is invited to sit down and enjoy the table with them all. But the ghost of Banquo's in his chair.
Yeah, his response is actually fairly innocent here. Well, the table's full. He doesn't at first realize this is the ghost of Banquo, and the other lords are known. Here's a place reserved. And this is where Macbeth sees. And he looks at the ghost, and all of a sudden, this guy who's supposed to be in charge, who's supposed to be running this party, is now looking into the ghost of the man he had murdered. And he says out loud where everyone can hear, "Thou canst not say I did it. Never shake thy gory locks at me." The ghost has gotten to him.
To be clear, nobody else can see the ghost. So it looks like Macbeth's gone mad. He's talking to a stool. And Lady Macbeth tries to play this off like, oh, he just has these fits. He's done that forever. Don't even indulge it. Don't worry.
Yeah, the other lords are kind of trying to get out of there. Gentlemen, rise. His Highness is not well. But as you said, Lady Macbeth is trying to smooth over the party. But it just keeps going. Macbeth can't turn away from this ghost. There's several of these back and forth. There's several lines from Macbeth, but eventually the ghost does walk out.
And his wife shames him. She says literally 5 for shame because Macbeth is not hosting well. And I marked this one because the words, blood hath been shed ere now in the olden time, ere humane statute purged the gentle wheel. Aye, and since too, murders have been performed, too terrible for the ear. The time has been that when the brains were out, the man would die, and there an end. But now they rise again with 20 mortal murders on their crowns and push us from our stools. This is more strange than such a murder is. The ghost took a stool, and it's really messing with him.
Yeah, he won't stay dead. It's not the way this is supposed to work. And yeah, it is really, really got into him.
Other murders worked. But the ghost does come back, and Macbeth here is giving a toast. I drink to the general joy of the whole table, and to our dear friend Banquo, whom we miss. Would he were here, to all, and him we thirst, and all to all. That is a bold toast to make while the man's ghost is wandering around about you.
It is indeed.
I sense some frantic energy in Macbeth here. He's on an edge.
Well, and he sees the ghost again immediately after that drink. Avaunt and quit my sight. Let the earth hide thee. Thy bones are marrowless. Thy blood is cold. Thou hast no speculation in those eyes which thou dost glare with. And again, Lady Macbeth keeps trying to tone all this down. And eventually the lords do leave.
Yeah, Lady Macbeth dismisses them. At once, good night. Stand not upon the order of your going, but go at once.
Macbeth, though, can't get out of his head. It will have blood, they say. Blood will have blood. Stones have been known to move and trees to speak. Augurs and understood relations have by maggot pies and choughs and rooks brought forth the secretest man of blood. What is the night? Nights are hard for Macbeth now.
Earlier even, he'd said it was a rough night. He'd murdered sleep. He does not have any kind of peace. And his argument, even when he screams at the ghost, you cannot say that I did it. You did. It's such a childish argument to be like, well, I didn't do it. I didn't actually take the dagger. I didn't actually use the sword against you. But he planned and plotted it as much as Lady Macbeth did Duncan. And this, the other Mac, another Mac is mentioned, how Macduff did not show up to dinner, and he was supposed to. And this is important because he's part of our next kind of segment of people. So Macbeth is making sure that there's no claim against him, right? That the prophecies of these sisters come true for him and that his sons are king after him. But Macduff apparently poses a threat as well because he was a king's man. Mm-hmm. He was a man of Duncan's. But this part here from Macbeth, he says, "Betimes I will to the weird sisters, more shall they speak, for now I am bent to know, by the worst means the worst, for mine own good, all causes shall give way. I am in blood, stepped in so far, that should I wade no more, returning were as tedious as to go over. Strange things I have in head that will to hand, which must be acted ere they may be scanned." And his wife tells him, "You need to sleep."
You lack the season of all natures, sleep.
I think she's right in this case, but he wants to know more from the sisters. What's going to happen now? Has anything changed? What more is there for me based on my actions? And this idea that he's so steeped in blood that he can't go back. How terrible is that, where there's no promise in his mind of any kind of redemption, repentance. He can't go back. He's all in.
Yeah. But again, though, what's the deal with oracles?
I've heard that.
Because one of the things that shows up often is this concept of how dangerous knowledge of the future is. And we see that in many places. Galadriel talks about it with her mirror in Lord of the Rings, the idea that you can see things in the future, but that's dangerous as a guide of deed, she says, because sometimes you can generate the future by trying to avoid it. There's that classic story of the guy who meets death in this one city. So death pops up, he sees him, and death looks surprised to see him. And this guy doesn't want to meet death, so he gets on an airplane and flies halfway across the world where he dies. And where he meets death, death says, "Yeah, I was surprised because I knew you were going to die in this city halfway across the world, and I didn't expect you over there." I mean, that's pretty funny. And then, of course, there's Master Oogway in Kung Fu Panda, who also speaks about the idea that sometimes in trying to prevent an oracle or a foretelling, you can cause it to happen. And I think we're going to see more and more of this as we get more involved with the weird sisters here.
Oogway, I got this one. "A man finds his destiny on the path he takes to avoid it."
I knew you would know it.
Didn't have to look that one up. What I didn't look up, and I should have, is the creature whose name I don't remember, but you probably do, from The Name of the Wind. Oh, no, it's in the sequel.
The Wise Man's Fear?
Where they meet that creature that anything that it says will come true.
Yes.
In fairyland and basically in fairyland. And it freaks the guy out that, well, you just never know, because I forget how it works. It's anything it foretells will happen, but it will say whatever it needs to make it happen. So you can't take it as truth.
Yes.
It's one or the other, but you don't know.
Yeah, I do not remember the name of that character, but I might have to read those again. It's been a while.
Cheshire Catty almost, but that it freaked the guy out so bad. And then this other guy kind of makes fun of him. He slaps him. He's like, "Well, that thing told me to."
That's right. Total aside here, but these are fun conversations that happen around determinism. The idea that everything is fated, that everything, one event follows from another event. I can't remember the Greek philosopher, and I'm embarrassed about that. But there was a saying that this Greek philosopher was beating his slave because his slave had stolen from him. And the slave says, "Well, why are you beating me? It was fated that I steal from you," because that was the teaching of this philosopher. And of course, the philosopher's response was, "Yes, and it is fated that I beat you for it."
There you go. I think Macbeth was not fated. This to me is such a domino effect of one terrible choice feeding another.
Yeah.
It's just this saturating brokenness. And it's so sad to see. He had that momentary thought of, maybe I do nothing and I become king. He doesn't know now. He doesn't get to know if that's how it worked. He chose this dark path. He chose it for his friend. They fought in battle together, and he chose to have him killed as well. And now I feel that if you are the king and you killed a king to get it, you're never going to feel safe.
No, never.
How could you?
Yeah.
He has established this broken thing that cannot possibly lead to anything happy for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think Shakespeare writes people so well.
Yeah.
Where it's just the cost of getting what you want when you're willing to pay the terrible price to get it. Everybody else pays, but so do you. What does it look like when you get it? So it's just wonderful, this whole dynamic, even though it's so, we don't usually do stories that are this amount of bleak, but man, this is a good one.
It is a very good one because we don't have to be bleak.
Right.
Right? It shows us, it holds up a light to decisions and how even sometimes some very small decisions can lead their way to darker and darker things. And so, for example, maybe don't go out and seek the answers from the powers of darkness about what's going to happen next. If he were to avoid that decision, some things might be different for the rest of the play. But he doesn't avoid that decision. He actively seeks them out. Real quick, one last aside. In the intro to my version of this one, the compilers basically state that they think that this next scene, and in fact, most of the scenes that have the goddess Hecate in them, are not originally Shakespeare. These are ones that they actually have found in other playwrights of the time and think it got modified into this. So it's still in the folios, so they include it in it. But I just thought that was interesting.
Well, it will have a line that is probably familiar to people. It's the witches when they're together. So Hecate is a goddess of darkness. And she joins these three prophetic witches along the way, and they have a cauldron, and they're stewing something. And many ingredients go inside this cauldron, but they all speak together, all three witches together. Double, double toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble.
Where did you hear that line first? Because I remember where I did.
That's a good question. I don't know.
DuckTales. There was a DuckTales episode. Yeah, it was great.
That was a great show.
I enjoyed it.
I have no idea if you can still find it, but that was a really good, in my memory, it was so good.
They've remade it. There's a newer version of it, and Scrooge McDuck is actually an actor I love. It's a guy named David Tennant, who played one of the doctors on Doctor Who, but I haven't watched any of the new one. But I remember as a kid really enjoying DuckTales.
It was part of the Disney afternoon. It was great. Anyway, so this part is one of those chunks that was inserted. This is part of something else?
I believe so. Now, again, these are Shakespeare scholars who know more than me. This is just part of my intro in this book. Here, well, I'll just go ahead and read it. It says, these episodes feature Hecate, who does not appear anywhere else in the play. They are composed largely in octosyllabic couplets in a style conspicuously different from the rest of the play, and they call for the performance of two songs that are found in The Witch, a play of uncertain date by Thomas Middleton. Probably Middleton himself adapted Shakespeare's play some years after its first performance. But they also say, we do not attempt to excise passages probably not written by Shakespeare because the adapter's hand may have affected the text at other indeterminate points. So they include it.
Yeah, fair. The other line that stuck out to me is by the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. That's another common one. Something wicked this way comes.
And it's just a good rhyme.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
So following the scene, and this is kind of a weird off scene too, because Hecate is mostly just kind of annoyed that she hasn't been included. She kind of chastises the other witches for not involving her, and they have a witchy banter back and forth with some of these things. But then we move into the next scene where we move on from the witches, and this is another one of those expository scenes where there's a couple of sort of the lords of the land that are talking to each other saying, hey, isn't it crazy what's going on in Scotland right now? And the summary of this is we learn basically that Duncan's sons are suspected of having killed him. That was the two that went, one to England, one to Ireland. That was Malcolm and Donald Bain. And now the suspicion for the murder of Duncan is on them. Strangely, Banquo's son is also now suspected of killing Banquo. Macbeth has gotten away with this so far. Suspicion hasn't even fallen on him. And since Banquo's son ran away, clearly he's guilty, so we see this same pattern. And then the last thing we learn here is that Macduff has fled to England to request the aid of King Edward, and Macduff refuses to pay homage to Macbeth. And that is how Act 3 ends, and that leads us into Act 4.
Here is where Macbeth approaches the witches. And he asks, "What are you doing?" And they say, "A deed without a name." So creepy.
Yeah. Don't hang out with witches. Just don't.
But he conjures them. He commands them to tell him more. And I mean, the cost and things that he rattles off are horrible. But the witches say, "Speak, demand, we will answer."
And in this brew, there's a cauldron here. And again, those lines you described are great. But then they have things to tell him. And what come up out of the cauldron are these apparitions. And it's these apparitions that come out of the cauldron that give him these messages. And there's a few here that are important. So the first one is very simple. It simply says, "Beware Macduff." The second one, a little bit more complicated. "None of woman born shall harm Macbeth." Well, he really likes that.
Yeah, laugh to scorn the power of man, for none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. Yep.
And then finally, the last one makes no sense. Again, what's up with oracles? The last one, "Macbeth shall never vanquished be until great Birnam Wood to high Dunsinane Hill shall come against him." Again, he doesn't think he's got anything to worry about. How can Birnam Wood, this forest, work its way to his fortified castle, which is Dunsinane? He thinks he's in the clear.
He's got another question, though. "Shall Banquo's issue ever reign in this kingdom?" And they say, "Seek to know no more." It reminded me again of the Eddas when they tell, or it's not the Eddas, the Voluspa.
That's the vulva.
The
The wise
vulva.
woman.
When Odin goes to talk to the wise men, she's like, "I have spoken and I will speak no more." They say, "We will speak no more." And he tries to curse them. That seems like a mistake.
Bold move.
But they show him 8 generations of future kings, and all of them look like Banquo.
History aside, Shakespeare was patroned by King James the First. James VI of Scotland, first of England. So he was really, really important. And this, among several things that are going to happen in these next few scenes, is basically an homage to King James. King James believed he was a direct descendant of Banquo. He believed he was the 8th descendant from Banquo. And so what Shakespeare is showing here at a performance that the king probably saw is the line from Banquo ending in the last one, the special one holding the glass, which is the king himself. So this is a way of pandering to his royal patron.
A little political propaganda happening here.
Very much so.
But this upsets Macbeth big time. And the witch says, "I, sir, all this is so, but why stands Macbeth thus amazedly? Come, sisters, cheer we up his spirit and show the best of our delights. I'll charm the air to give a sound while you perform your antic round, that this great king may kindly say, our duties did his welcome pay. There's music, the witches dance and vanish." Macbeth's like, "Where'd they go?"
And then I love that Macbeth here gets kind of discovered by another one of the lords. Like Lord Lennox comes up to him and like, "Oh, you're here."
Yeah. He's like, "Did you see the witches?" No. What?
No, what?
What witches?
Oh, yeah.
But here he learns that Macduff fled to England to ask for help to come defeat him. And this is another Macbeth aside. It's dark. He says, "Time, thou anticipatest my dread exploits. The flighty purpose ne'er is overtook, unless the deed go with it. From this moment, the very firstlings of my heart shall be the firstlings of my hand. And even now, to crown my thoughts with acts, be it thought and done." he will think no more. He's tired of thinking. He's tired of feeling bad. If he thinks he should do it, he's going to just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Gone are the internal debates. The conscience is dead, at least in terms of active discussion. He is now all in on this path of darkness, and it gets even darker.
Yeah, this is horrible.
This next scene, I think, is one of the hardest ones to watch and read in the entire passage, because Macduff fled, but he left his wife and his child in his castle in Scotland. There are rules of warfare, and there are rules of noble interaction. Macduff had reason to believe that, according to the norms of the time, his wife and child, they might be taken captive, right? They might be prisoners, but they had reason for them to believe they would be safe. Well, Macbeth doesn't do that anymore. And the next scene opens with this really playful back and forth between Lady Macduff and Macduff's son.
She learns that her husband has left her and gone to England. And she's afraid. It says, when our actions do not, our fears do make us traitors. She feels abandoned and alone here. And it's actually her cousin present first that says, you know not whether it was his wisdom or his fear that drove him away. And she said, wisdom, to leave his wife, to leave his babes, his mansion and his titles in a place from whence himself does fly. He ran away and left them. He loves us not. He wants the natural touch, for the poor wren, the most diminutive of birds, will fight her young ones in her nest against the owl. All is the fear and nothing is the love. As little is the wisdom where the flight so runs against all reason. This is crushing. The only other woman in this book is Lady Macbeth, who is chilling and cold and wants to be so. This woman this is the first time we've met her. She's at home alone with her children, and her husband has run away. And there's this new king, and they're on the losing side. They are opposed to the king. If he left for England, that makes him a traitor. And he left them there. So this is devastating to actually read her thoughts. But then, yes, her son seems unconcerned.
Yeah, he's a precocious little guy, and there's some really clever wordplay and some banter back and forth, but I don't really want to go into it because the scene is so sad and is so tragic, because they're warned to flee. So her cousin, the Ross who is there, warns them to flee, and then he's got to go because he can't be seen with her. And then there's even a messenger that comes and warns her, says, "Bless you, fair dame, I am not to you known, though in your state of honor I am perfect. I doubt some danger does approach you nearly. If you will take a homely man's advice, be not found here." But it's too late, and the murderers show up again, and this time no one gets away. And both Lady Macduff and Macduff's son are killed. They're murdered here in this scene.
Yeah, this one was hard. And then the scene changes, and we go to Malcolm. So this is King Duncan's son, his heir, but he also is in England. So it's Malcolm and that man Macduff, and they don't know anything about what just happened. But here Malcolm is already sad. It starts with, "Let us seek out some desolate shade, and there weep our sad bosoms empty." He's lamenting what's going on in their home country. Mm-hmm. But they're in England to drum up support. And there's this back and forth between them that's really odd, where Malcolm basically is testing Macduff to see if he's loyal, because they thought Macbeth was loyal. He wasn't. And so here he portrays himself as worse than Macbeth. He has vices and the word avaricious, which is, it means something bad, but it's just a very good vocabulary word. Macduff is shocked. He doesn't know what to do. He came here to find support, to take back home, to defeat Macbeth, doing these horrible things to their country. And the heir is like, "Okay, you pass. I'm not really bad at all."
I'm actually great, it turns out.
It goes on for a while, though.
It is a lot of back and forth. And there's one other insert in here that I think is a whole lot of fun, because it's a doctor comes in and he's talking about the King of England, King Edward, and he's describing how he can heal by a touch. he refers to this disease called the king's evil. It's got another name, which is really fun to say, scrofula. Scrofula. It's a skin disease. And King Edward the Confessor, according to kind of legend, was able to heal this with a touch of his hands. And it was said that actually King James claimed to be able to do it as well. So again, there's some interactions here. I just want to talk briefly about Edward the Confessor, because he was a historical king and shows up in here as kind of a big character giving aid to Malcolm. He was king before Harold Godwinson. Harold Godwinson, a lot of people don't know the name, but a lot of people know about something called the Battle of Hastings in 1066. This was when William the Conqueror crossed the Channel and basically took over England, and Norman England became a thing. Harold Godwinson was the king that was defeated at the Battle of Hastings. So King Edward the Confessor was an Anglo-Saxon king just before Harold Godwinson. And so that puts Macbeth in kind of history where we're talking about. Edward the Confessor was known for being the one who built the first version of Westminster Abbey. The one he built was demolished in 1245 to make way for the current one, but still kind of the foundation stones of that. He is the only king of England to have been canonized by a pope. So Edward the Confessor is actually Saint Edward to the Roman Church. And then one of the things that I think is fun, again, going back in history on him, is that he is actually the seventh son of one of the funniest named kings in England, Ethelred the Unready.
The Unready?
The Unready. He usually he's a fascinating historical character and gets a lot of flack because he didn't do so well against the Norse and the Danes.
He wasn't ready.
Yeah. But that word actually has a different meaning in Middle and Old English. So read is advice or counsel. So Ethelred the Unready is Ethelred the poorly advised. But it gets even funnier because Ethelred, red, is counsel. So that's basically wise counsel, the poorly counseled. So it's a great pun of a name. Okay, moving on.
Okay, thank you. I did not know any of that.
So much fun to be had with the Anglo-Saxon kings.
You know, it's good to have some aside here in historical because this next part is brutal again.
Yeah.
A messenger comes. It was actually his wife's cousin, comes to Malcolm and Macduff, who are talking about how they have this army ready to go, going to take back the kingship from Macbeth. And the man has to tell Macduff that his wife and children were murdered. It reminds me of Gladiator, honestly, where his enemies go and kill his wife and son while he's away. That happened here. And Malcolm, the heir to the throne, says, don't be sad, be angry.
Yeah, use this. And it works. Macduff's last line here of this scene. Oh, I could play the woman with mine eyes and braggart with my tongue, but gentle heavens, cut short all intermission. Front to front, bring thou this fiend of Scotland and myself within my sword's length, set him. If he scape, heaven forgive him too. He is ready to go, and Malcolm likes this, his response. This tune goes manly. Come, go we to the king. Our power is ready, our lack is nothing but our leave. Macbeth is ripe for shaking, and the powers above put on their instruments. Receive what cheer you may. The night is long that never finds the day.
They are going to war. Start Act 5.
Start Act 5. And let me tell you, Act 5 bounces all over the place. I said most of Shakespeare's acts usually have like 5 scenes. This one has 11.
Mine is 8, brother.
Oh, that'll be interesting to see how they cut these up.
Yeah. Stephen comes in with this massive full text volume of all Shakespeare's plays. I got the little readable one. I have the big one as well.
I think the little one's smarter.
I didn't want to hold the big one.
No, this is sitting on the table in front of me. It's heavy.
And has more scenes than mine.
I'm curious how they cut them up. But the first one, I'm sure, is the same. Because the first one starts with a gentlewoman, a lady in waiting, essentially, and a doctor. And they are watching because the gentlewoman has called for the doctor because she sees Lady Macbeth, who keeps walking in her sleep. And boy, yeah, this such a powerful scene.
Mine says, enter Lady Macbeth with a taper, a candle. Lo you, here she comes. This is her very guise, and upon my life, fast asleep. Observe her. Stand close. And the doctor asks how she came by the light. And the gentlewoman says, it's always by her. She has light by her continually, by command. But they know she's asleep. She keeps rubbing her hands. She can't get them clean. Earlier, she prayed for no remorse, no conscience, but in her sleep, Macbeth murdered sleep for both of them. Really, they both did. She can't get her hands clean. Out, damn spot. Out, I say. 1, 2. Why then, 'tis time to do it. Hell is murky. Fie, my lord, fie, a soldier and afraid. What need we fear, who knows it, when none can call our power to account? Yet who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him?
This character, this woman who was so cold, was so driven, so focused, who mocked Macbeth for his weakness, who feared he wouldn't go through it, she can't get away either. This is just in her, the conscience, and it keeps going. The Thane of Fife had a wife. This was Macduff. Where is she now? What, will these hands ne'er be clean? No more of that, my lord, no more of that. You mar all with this starting.
Here's the smell of the blood still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. And she sighs, oh. And the doctor comments on it. Again, this woman is asleep, but he says, what a sigh is there. The heart is sorely charged. Earlier, Lady Macbeth had said, just wash your hands. Easily cleaned up with a little bit of water. Her hands look clean. But this is a stain in her soul, a stain in her conscience. She can't rub it out. Her lady-in-waiting says that she will rub her hands for at least a quarter of an hour, just trying to get them clean.
And then the next passages, too, fall into that category of things that she had said or experienced or done that within her soul are now coming back. Wash your hands, put on your nightgown, look not so pale. I tell you yet again, Banquo's buried. He cannot come out one's grave. Well, he did. The ghost was at the table. Macbeth saw him. Or the next one, to bed, to bed. There's knocking at the gate. Come, 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 come. Give me your hand. What's done cannot be undone. To bed, to bed, to bed. Again, knocking. Remember how much knocking was in that scene where they're murdering the king. That knocking. All these things that have experienced, even if in her waking mind she's not talking about them, they are in her soul and are coming out here at a time where she can't clamp them down. And it's just, the doctor here even says, this disease is beyond my practice. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is beyond what he can help because this is bleak.
More needs she the divine than the physician. God forgive us all. Look after her. They basically just heard her confess guilt to murder, and he prays over her. God forgive her. Look after her. The doctor here has a small role, but I love him. Just how he watches this and recognizes just how deeply wounded she is in spirit. This isn't something he can fix with a pill, with a medicine.
No. And then in mine, again, I'll be interested where ours bounce around. Mine now bumps to scene 2, which is basically the rebels are meeting near Burnham Wood, and they talk about how Macbeth is fortified in Dunsinane, and that's really it. They're just, the rebels are there, and then Macbeth is in his castle. And then mine moves on to scene 3, and scene 3 is really, really interesting because...
I'm going to read one thing. The only thing I want to call it in scene 2, because it is these enemies of Macbeth gathering together to fight against him. And one of them named Angus says something, and it has to do with the hands. It says, now does he, Macbeth, feel his secret murder sticking on his hands. Now minutely revolts upbraid his faith breach. Those he commands move only in command, nothing in love. Now does he feel his title hang loose about him, like a giant's robe upon a dwarfish thief.
Oh, that's a great line. I didn't really stop on that this read. That is like a giant's robe upon a dwarfish thief. Angus knows how to cut a man down.
Go Angus.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's great. Because then it goes to Macbeth, and he's there, the doctor's there, and he's got attendants, and Macbeth is now really in a posture of war. So he's a commander, and he's asking for reports and trying to get things and learn things. But meanwhile, the doctor is trying to explain that there's something going on with his wife. And this, again, is fantastic because, he's asking, well, is she sick? What's going on? And he says, not so sick, my lord, as she is troubled with thick-coming fancies that keep her from her rest. And then Macbeth's line here is a classic. Cure her of that. Canst thou not minister to a mind diseased? Pluck from the memory a rooted sorrow. Raise out the written troubles of the brain, and with some sweet, oblivious antidote, cleanse the fraught bosom of that perilous stuff which weighs upon the heart. Macbeth is desperate. I think he does want his wife helped, but I think there's a plea here for himself. Canst thou not minister to a mind diseased? Because his is. And the doctor's response is very clear. Therein, the patient must minister to himself. It's not something that the doctor can do. It's not something that somebody from the outside, the patient has to be a part of this. And once again, Macbeth has a choice. And once again, he makes the choice. His line, throw physic to the dogs, all none of it. And he is all in on his battle plans.
And he knows there's a lot of people coming against him, but he says, bring it after me. I will not be afraid of death and bane till Burnham Forest come to Dunsinane, till the wood comes to this castle where he's at. Nothing to be afraid of. No mortal man can kill him. No, that's not it. No man born of woman.
No man born of woman.
No man born of woman can kill him.
He need fear no man born of woman. And so then we move to scene 4 in mine, and scene 4 is very short. This is Malcolm in Birnam Wood, but the important part of this is he says, let every soldier hew him down a bough. Every soldier take a branch. And it doesn't explain why yet for this one, but this is going to come up as this progresses. And then from there, mine goes to scene 5. Do you have anything else on there? I'm not sure how yours is broken up.
My scene 4 says, thereby shall we shadow the numbers of our host and make discovery err in report of us.
Okay.
They're going to hide their numbers.
And so in scene 5, though, again, we go back to Macbeth. In this act, it's bouncing back and forth between the rebels and Macbeth and the rebels and Macbeth. And we don't see most of the battle, but there's all sorts of battle and fight going on here. But here, one of the lords comes up to Macbeth and tells him, the queen, my lord, is dead. And here is the passage. This was the one I heard Ian McKellen deliver, and he was masterful. Maybe the most famous passage from this entire play. And so I feel like we need to read this one in full. She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. Creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Again, I was surprised where this lands inside this play. I knew it was part of Macbeth, but that it's in the midst of this bouncing back and forth and the battle and all these things are happening. And then there's this pause and reflection, and that phrasing comes out, this deep reflection on death. Such a strange time for it to hit. And I think that well done in a play could be excellent, where you just have the frantic energy and then that focus in where he's thinking his wife is dead. I always get the sense it's by her own hand.
I do too, although it doesn't clearly state that.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I get from this and what that passage is utter despair. His choices have cost him everything. Utter despair. Even his wife is now gone. And I think her despair manifests by self-slaughter. I do think she kills herself. And then Macbeth doesn't really even have that out. He is just down to nothing. So all his ambition and everything worked. Everything that the witches prophesied worked. What did it get him? Nothing. And it's his fault, and he has to live with that. It's masterfully done.
At this moment, a messenger comes in. He says, "Thou comest to use thy tongue, thy story quickly. Tell me, tell me." And this messenger tells him, "I looked toward Burnham, and anon methought the wood began to move." Macbeth screams at him, "Liar and slave." He's like, "No, truly, the wood is come to Dunsinane."
What is up with oracles? It always never goes right.
Did not see that coming. I like this line. Macbeth says at the end, he says, "I begin to be aweary of the sun. He prefers the dark now. This day is too long." Earlier, he said how the time passes, even on the worst days. Well, here it's changed. He is weary of the sun.
Mm-hmm. Utter despair. In my script, that was 5-5, and then 5-6 is just a really brief interchange where Malcolm is talking about the leafy screens and saying to throw them down. And so we have kind of the explanation for Burnham's wood moving. It was those branches that they had cut down before, and so it looked like trees coming. And here we have the rebels throwing them down away from them, and Macduff is still just hungering for blood. And then it bounces back to Macbeth. And so this is why there's so many in mine, because every time it bounces from one to the other, it calls it a new scene. And so Macbeth now is confronted by a young lord. It's young Seward. Old Seward is one of the lords with Malcolm. Young Seward is his son, and they fight. And here, as this all wraps up, there's these wonderful duels. And in this one, young Seward really comes at him. But Macbeth says, after killing him, "Thou was born of woman, but swords I smile at, weapons laugh to scorn, brandished by man that's of a woman born."
This line here, like you said, Macbeth has nothing left. And so here he says, "Blow wind, come rack. At least we'll die with harness on our back."
Mm-hmm.
That's his armor. He's going to fight. And he's starting to speculate now because the wood has come to him. He did not expect that. What can it then mean for someone to kill him not born of woman? What is that?
Enter Macduff. And Macduff and Macbeth have this great exchange where they're shouting back and forth of them. And again, here, Macbeth very specifically says he's not going to kill himself. He's by himself on the stage here, and he says, "Why should I play the Roman fool and die on mine own sword? Whilst I see lives, the gashes do better upon them." So now he's just out to kill and slay. Now, whatever you think of the Roman practice of suicide, they at least thought they were doing something honorable. When Cato or Seneca or any of these people killed themselves, it was an honorable act. He can't even go to a pagan honorable act, right? That is now out of his reach, and all he has left is to kill. But this is where Macduff turns up and says, "Turn, hellhound, turn." And the two have this back and forth, and they fight. And then Macbeth to him says, "Thou losest labor. As easiest may thou the entrenched, sir, with thy keen sword impress, as make me bleed. Let fall thy blade on vulnerable crest. I bear a charmed life, which must not yield to one of woman born." And Macduff responds, "To spare thy charm, and let the angel whom thou still hast served tell thee, Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped."
Here's where Macbeth gets scared. Fear enters, because before he was laughed to scorn, any man.
Well, this is the final duel. And Macbeth says, "I will not yield to kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet, and to be battered with rabble's curse. Through Burnham wood be come to Dunsinane, and thou oppose being of no woman born, yet will I try the last. Before my body I throw my warlike shield. Lay on, Macduff, and damned be him that first cries, hold, enough. And they duel, and Macbeth is defeated.
I found the ending of this quite abrupt, actually.
Oh, very much, because that's a big moment. And normally Shakespeare does a really good job at the end of his tragedies. There's usually some parade at the end where the bodies are borne off. It's a very practical way of getting them off the stage. Here, though, it's really, really short. It's kind of Malcolm and Macduff and old Seward. Seward gets some comfort that his son died in a manly way.
Yeah, I do like this line because Seward is speaking about his young son who Macbeth had killed on the battlefield. He says, "Why then, God's soldier be he," speaking about his son. "Had I as many sons as I have hairs, I would not wish them to a fairer death. And so his knell is knolled." He died well.
But then Malcolm basically just takes over, and he's the king now.
Hail, King of Scotland!
That's right. They're going to go off to have him crowned at Scone, where they should be crowned, at the Stone of Scone. The end.
Abrupt.
Oh my goodness, though. So good. So much to learn, so much to think about. This is what a good tragedy should do. I think a bad tragedy just makes you sad. But a good tragedy makes you think about choices and the path and how things could have been different. And Aristotle was really big on this. One of the other things you needed for a good tragedy is a noble character. When bad things happen to, unimportant or unnoble characters, it's sad, but it's not tragic. In this, we had the Thane of Glamis. We had the great warrior of King Duncan. He started with some nobility, and he threw it all away and ended as nothing. Just powerful.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to do this one. So I hope you all have enjoyed it because, man, I got chills repeatedly reading this. Like I said, Shakespeare tells people's stories so well and pieces them together. And the feeling of it. This one is a very emotional, you really feel things inside of Macbeth. And I think it's just a wonderful story about a man who's trying to force his reality to match what he wants. Mm-hmm. Somebody told him he could have it, so he took it. But even then, it's not what he wanted. I think being a person who thinks through consequences, costs, aftermath, impacts on others, that's all felt here. If you ignore those, if you choose not to think at all about those things, you lose it all.
Yeah. One other thing I really like about this play in particular are all the echoes that I see in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And we've talked about some of these in the past. I mean, the no man, woman born can harm him. That's a direct parallel with the Lord of the Nazgul, that no man born of woman can harm him. I mean, you see that in there. And then in the Two Towers, where we have the Ents and where we have the Huorns, right, the living trees that are moving and killing the orcs, we have this concept of a forest on the move. And so these comparisons really jump out, and there's a lot more, but those are a couple of the striking ones. And it made me wonder how, direct were those? Obviously, Tolkien read a ton of stuff. He must have read Shakespeare. And I thought I had come across or heard that he had read it and didn't necessarily like Macbeth. And I wanted to make sure if that was a real thing or just something that people made up. Well, I found it. I am holding in my hand the letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. And on a letter that they number 163 in this work, this is 7 June 1955, to someone named W.H. Auden. In this letter, he's basically explaining some of the background to Lord of the Rings and some of the things he thought about making it. And I am going to quote from the bottom of this letter. Their part in the story is due, I think, to my bitter disappointment and disgust from school days with the shabby use made in Shakespeare of the coming of Great Burnham Wood to High Dunsinane Hill. I long to devise a setting in which the trees might really march to war, and into this has crept a mere piece of experience, the difference of the male and female attitude to wild things, the difference between unpossessive love and gardening. So I do think it's true. I think that part of the play disappointed him. He wanted, really, how can this oracle be fulfilled so that the wood truly moves? And he thought camouflage was kind of a weak way of pulling that off. So what we get from that then is the Hjorn. So thank you to Shakespeare for inspiring J.R. Tolkien to some of his greatest passages.
It's funny. I saw that too recently, and it's another instance of how I know Facebook listens to you. Because it kept popping up because I follow things about Tolkien and like, oh, Tolkien and Macbeth. Heard me say Macbeth. And so, yes, I'm glad you confirmed it because there's a lot of letters. He wrote a lot of letters.
Yeah, they're great. They're a lot of fun.
It's true, but going to find a specific one, good job, you. I went a different way, brother. And I just want to acknowledge the immense and amazing villainy that is Lady Macbeth. She is horrible and so well done, so wonderfully crafted. And it made me think about lady villains in stories. And this has been a really fun prompt this past week because she's up there with the best of them. She has a pretty nondescript ending where women scream off stage and the messenger runs up and says, your wife is dead. So after the sleepwalking, we don't see Lady Macbeth again in the play, but her machinations, her manipulation of people, her ability to warmly welcome the king and yet plot his murder so coldly. I mean, she is chilling. That is the word, chilling. So I don't know if you thought about this at all, but I made a list of other villainesses. And I didn't include Disney villainesses.
Okay.
That's hard to say.
Sure.
Like, there's some good ones, like the Evil Queen, Sleeping Beauty, or Ursula. Ursula's a very good one.
Very evil.
But I tried
Maleficent.
to go... Oh,
Ooh,
yeah. See, those are good. But I was trying to stay away from animated to dwindle my number. So the couple I put at the top, Emma Bovary.
Oh.
You felt it, huh? These aren't stack ranked. This is not in a priority order. They were in the order I kind of thought of them and collected them. So Emma Bovary, if you haven't read Madame Bovary, I'd say don't. Just let that one go by. She's manipulative and terrible. And it's been a while. Maybe I'd get more out of it now, but I'm willing to let that one go. But I think demonstrates very well a woman with machinations. Mm-hmm. Anna Karenina was another one. I don't know if you could call her a villainess, a lady villain, but she is hard and manipulative. She has the fingers in the pies.
I remember not liking her. That's one I probably need to read again, but I remember not being sad at the end. And that's probably not okay. So maybe that says something about me.
It's been a while. Again, I'm older now. Maybe I would get more out of it. But I just remember that feeling of twisting, of a woman, whether with reasons or not, doing something or some things that she should not, using her skills, her wiles, her powers for evil instead of good. That's what I remember. The Green Lady from the Silver Chair. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Do you think she belongs in the list?
Oh, totally. When you first said the Green Lady, I went straight to Paralandra, and I thought, no, of course not.
No,
you are talking about to the Lady of the Green Kirtle. And yes, she is green as poison.
Do you have any? I can just keep going down my list here. But
yeah, so there's a few that I thought of, and I tried to kind of link them to Lady Macbeth-esque. And so one of them is Medea. Medea from the Jason stories, the Golden Fleece stories. So she fell in love with Jason and literally turned on her family and home, helped him achieve the quest, and then went back to Greece with him to the downfall of her nation and her father. So initially that's rough. But then Jason cheated on her, and so in her final days, she ended up killing her own children and flying off on a chariot with dragons. Oof. And so she also was a priestess of Hecate. So I think there's some connections on her there to Lady Macbeth.
Yeah, for sure. I put Lilith. Mm-hmm. So what I know about Lilith is limited to the George MacDonald novel of Lilith. I know there are more things about her, but an evil giantess lady. I mean, she does terrible things through her beauty and her wiles. I think she belongs on the list. I did put the tree in Fantastes, and I can't remember what she was. Not the ash tree.
The alder.
The alder tree.
The lady of the alder.
You'll like this one. Rebecca has a maid.
Oh, wow, yes.
This one came from our mom or our dad.
Yes.
Maybe in tandem, I'm not sure. But Danvers, I think her name is Danvers.
I think it's Danvers. That's a deep cut, and that's brilliant.
She's, oh, yeah. I feel like she might be the top listing there. She is chilling. She has that chilling aspect. I'm going with Danvers for number 1 from Rebecca, and it was not my suggestion. So good job, Mom and Dad. There's other ones. The ones that kind of give me the yuck feeling. Umbridge.
Yeah, she's
Harry
high
Potter.
on the list.
Yeah, but
High on the list.
just that pen, that I will not tell lies, that's very evil.
Yeah, and the problem with her, though, is she pretends to not be. I mean, because you also have, like, Bellatrix, who is just full-on evil, but there's at least some honesty to that, whereas Umbridge, with that just saccharine appearance and is just, there was some quote I saw somewhere of, like, list your most hated character from Harry Potter and explain why it's Umbridge.
Right? That's what I mean with Lady Macbeth, where she does the warm welcome, and so gracious. And yet. So it's kind of it has to include that twisting. Yeah. And so I really enjoyed crafting this list.
No, let's just think about these fun other stories.
Well, this is from a book we've done. Mrs. Reed from Jane Eyre.
Oh, yeah.
She doesn't kill anybody, but man, she's awful. And she has that portrayal of herself as a martyr, where she's caring for this niece of hers that she doesn't want. She is doing the hard thing, and she denies Jane, this poor orphan, her birthright. Gross.
I think I didn't think about her so much because I don't like St. John so much.
You just skipped over.
My irritation was focused on the guy at the end, but
St. John equals St. John. Just read it St. John and you'll be relieved.
Okay.
So I think you'll like this one. The Thénardiers.
I was about to bring that one up.
Okay, do.
Yeah, so in terms of, I think, some of the coldest, most evil, just most disgusting villains in all of literature, the Thénardiers. And Madame Thénardier from Les Miserables, hideous. She is just wicked and evil and terrifying.
All right, my winner, and this was mine, is actually from a movie. Mrs. Bates from Psycho. If you know, you know. It's an Alfred Hitchcock movie. Totally gruesome for the time. I mean, it's still gruesome, but they don't show it like they show in movies now.
It's brilliant. I don't watch horror movies. I have no interest in horror whatsoever. But Psycho, it's a good movie.
Choose your moment when you watch it, because it's spooky.
Oh, yeah, it's terrifying, but it's a good movie.
That's what I got.
All right, well, we can't end on villainesses. So I think what we should do is take a step back and embrace theater tradition. We have used the name Macbeth a great deal during this, and we're not actually in a theater, so I'm not going to spin around 3 times and spit. But the end of that rite was usually to read another line from Shakespeare. And one of the classic ones that frequently gets read is the epilogue to A Midsummer Night's Dream. So this is the end of Midsummer Night's Dream. This is Robin Goodfellow, Puck himself, and I will just read it. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here, while these visions did appear, and this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will mend. And as I am an honest Puck, if we have had unearned luck, now to scape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long. Else the Puck a liar call, so good night unto you all. Give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends. And with that, we'll turn the page, and we hope you join us for the next chapter.